Do you guys remember those refrigerator quote magnets that you'd find in the 90s and like some little chintzy store and it would be like, believe in yourself and there's no how high you can go and shit like that. And I was thinking about this one today while I was procrastinating that was like, love what you do and you'll never work another day in your life. And I was like, I love what I do and it still feels like work. And I was procrastinating all morning coming, and I don't even like my hair like this. I don't like, I'm kind of overlooking at myself, I think is the truth of the matter. You know, maybe you don't know this, but I was an actress, a struggling actress, trying to be an actress. I stopped quite a few years ago, which is a good thing because my time was up. In fact, you could argue that my time never happened, but there you go. And then Morgan and I started telling these stories. So if you're new to this weird little corner of the internet, welcome to Anxiety Addicts Bedtime Stories, where we take stories from all over the world and our inbox and weird viral stories, things that are funny or embarrassing or ridiculous or horrible, but we give them a happy ending as a way to help you turn off your brain and sort of disengage from reality, because reality bites. If you need to go back and find a great movie, Reality Bites is still a great movie. And we watched Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead last night, and that is also still a great movie. Massive shout out to Christina Applegate and the woman who played Rose. So good. Underrated. This is a story that has a little bit of 90s nostalgia, or a lot. I think maybe the movie came out in 89, 86. And it is about a boy whose psyche was shaped by the movie Child's Play. Remember Chuckie, the crazy, freaky doll that haunted all of our nightmares? That one. So sit back, relax, unplug. I hope you like the story. I think it's hilarious. Morgan and I wondered at one point if it made the dad sound like he didn't love the son, but we actually decided he was just the best dad out there and that we could all take some parenting advice from this guy. So I hope you enjoy this one. It's called Child's Play. Gary had enough with the late night horse shit because in Gary's life, he dealt with literal horse shit in the mornings. The late nights involved his children. One child in particular. It hadn't been days or weeks or seasons. Girl, it had been years. And those years felt like they were taking a toll on the youthful vibe that he was regularly complimented on. And that annoyed Gary because he liked being complimented. He also liked feeling young. And he wasn't blaming the calendar or the sunspots. He was blaming Joey. Joey was the youngest son and the most trouble, especially after the sun went down. Gary should have known. The night that Joey was born, he'd had 2 cows calve and the windstorm blew out the power. Any farmer will tell you that a night with screaming bovines isn't the most relaxing welcome into the world. Joey was a smart and precocious child. Gary didn't mind either of those things. Joey was into building projects with the bits and bobs he found around the farm. Often those projects were, admittedly well-made, booby traps. Joey would hide behind the couch and laugh his ass off at any and every family member who walked into his contraption. Surprisingly, Gary didn't mind this. He didn't mind the elaborate stories that Joey would tell at the dinner table or the fact that his youngest son regularly left the chicken gate open. No, Gary was pretty chill with all of this. What really ruffled his feathers was the fact that his 8-year-old kid would not fucking go to bed. How is he not tired? Gary would drawl to his wife as he clicked off the TV, the pitter-pattering of footsteps audible to everyone awake in the creaky house. Your turn, Sandra would reply. She insisted that she was done mothering at 8 p.m. and that everyone in the Federhorn house better have their yayas out before then because she wasn't going to deal with it. This made the 7 p.m. hour absolute chaos, but Sandra held firm and the family learned to respect that one very important boundary. She usually ignored the insanity and spent all 60 seconds of 7:59 p.m. smiling at the kitchen wall clock. Gary would make a lot of noise, pulling his solid body off the springy couch after stroking his strawberry blonde beard. This was his move whenever he needed a minute. It looked like he was thinking. He was often just delaying moving his body. That happens when your day starts at 4:30 a.m. because the fence came down in the storm, or because the frost came over the corn when it wasn't supposed to, or 2 cows gave birth within the same hour, or the multitude of things that could go wrong on 100 acres in Iowa in the early 2000s. Gary's calloused hand stroked the red hair that grew artfully out of his chin. He had quite the look. Gary might spend the majority of his day in his plaid shirts and worn-out Carhartt overalls, but the second he was home or out on the town, it was always an outfit that a street fashion photographer would salivate over. It was often some version of a Canadian tuxedo, that being denim on denim. But it worked for him in a way that it didn't for most people. There was something about his choice of blues that made people do an appreciative double take. Or maybe it was his mullet. His haircut was so extreme that it was the sort of farmer's version of the Rachel. Everyone loved it. Few could pull it off as well as the original. There was definitely something about Gary. But Gary, a confident cowboy or not, was really sick of getting his kid to bed. He finished stroking his beard. He could hear Joey's breathing from behind the couch. In Gary's experience, his children all inherited his self-assuredness, whether they deserved it or not. Joey thought he was a whole hell of a lot sneakier than he actually was. Joey! The way Gary said the name gave it 3 syllables. He heard Joey duck to the floor. Gary mused momentarily that this kid was aging him in a way that the others were not. These nights of sleep refusal made him wonder what the heck was going on in this kid's brain when the sky turned dark. He seemed to get more energy. It made Gary wish there were some kind of nighttime farm chores appropriate for a 3rd grader. There weren't many. We ain't doing this again. Come on, kid. I don't care if you sleep. Just stay in your damn bed, or even just the damn bedroom. The damn bedroom had everything a kid could possibly want to sleep and also to be awake in. Joey, as we know, was the baby of the family, and he milked that position every chance he got. The number of toys couldn't fit in the closet even on his most organized day, and his bed was a sea of stuffed animals purchased at every county fair and also basically every time his mother had to go to the local Kroger, which was often. A red-headed doll sat in the prime location above his dresser. Gary had won that one for Joey in the fair game where you had to hit the hammer and watch the ball float up to gauge your strength. Gary won the biggest prize every single year without fail. Maybe Sandra and Gary had lost their edge with their youngest because he was somehow not falling into line like his siblings had before him. I just can't sleep. Joey threw down the statement so matter-of-factly that it sounded like he'd just graduated with his JD. Gary turned to face his youngest son. You can, because it's bedtime. He tried to find some energy to make a serious face. I can't because I'm not tired. Joey had plenty of energy and his face showed it. You can lie there. I can't. My body won't let me. Gary sighed like a plow horse being pushed out of the shade. He wasn't in the mood to debate. He wanted to unbutton the top of his jeans, make some popcorn, and watch the Hawkeyes game. Unfortunately, it was 8:09 and Sandra was nowhere to be seen. Let's just try. Gary hoisted himself up off the couch and found himself 45 minutes later in the cluttered bedroom, his voice now hoarse from reading 3 entire chapters of Harry Potter out loud. There were just so many damn characters he couldn't keep them all straight. Now his brain and his body were dead tired, and the football game was nearly over. Gary extracted himself from the tangle of Joey's limbs. Good night, son. I don't care what you do, but stay in bed. Joey nodded, and Gary would have sworn that his son's eyelids looked heavy. He nodded to himself. Damn, he was a good dad. Gary padded into the living room and settled back down on the couch. The first movie that popped up when he hit the remote got his attention. Gary had always liked horror movies, and he hadn't seen this one in years. It was a classic. As the face of the killer doll filled the screen, Gary smiled to himself, pulled up a plaid blanket, and was ready to zone out to Chuckie in the 1988 film, Child's Play. He'd been watching it for what seemed like 32 seconds when he heard a familiar rustling sound behind the couch. God damn it, Joey, that better not be you. But as any parent knows, when they utter that phrase, 99% of the time, it is, in fact, your child. And you have to do something about it. especially if you can't find Sandra because she snuck off into town with her friends for margaritas at Ladies' Bingo night at the Elks Club. So, for the second time that evening, Gary hoisted his weary bones and tired voice up off the couch, trudged into his son's room, and tucked him in. Again. "Good night, Joey. I love you. Now stay in your damn bed." It was 9:20. How was this kid still awake? Poor Gary didn't have much time to ponder that idea. He was zonked. He closed the door of Joey's room and dropped his tuchus back on the couch. This time, it was more like 3 minutes before he heard the pitter-patter of relentless feet. "Joey! Dad, just one more story. I think Harry Potter's going to give me nightmares." "Get into bed or I'll give you nightmares." It was an empty threat, and everyone in the Fetterhorn house knew it. Gary was a gentle and very well-dressed giant. He got up once again, threw the blankets over his son, tripped on a stuffed animal snake, almost threw his back out, said a string of words he'd have to repent for in church, and finally limped out of Joey's room. This time, he decided to stop in the kitchen for a well-deserved beer. Rookie mistake. As he lowered himself back onto his preferred movie-watching spot, he saw a lump move under the plaid blanket. "Joey!" This time, Joey scurried like a mouse being chased back into his room. Gary was too tired to be angry. He shook his head to himself. This happened almost every night. Joey could not go to bed. It was like he was wired differently than the farmers in his bloodline. Nighttime woke him up naturally. It was either that or he was stealing coffee from the kitchen at 7 p.m. Whatever the reason, Gary could not argue with the fact that this kid had an opposite circadian rhythm of everyone else in the household. But regardless of what was happening in the kid's brain, this bedtime bullshit had to be broken. The cold beer sloshing down Gary's throat was as refreshing as jumping into a lake on a blazing hot summer day. It was exactly what he needed. The bubbles floated right up to his brain as the underscore of the movie told him that someone was about to get stabbed in the neck by a demonically possessed doll. Right as the music reached a crescendo, Gary heard another noise. It might have startled him a bit, but he would never admit it. It was a noise in his house. A noise he did not want to hear. A sound he was dreading. It was Joey. Gary felt ready to jump off the couch in a rage, but he stopped himself. He told his kid every which way to get his butt back into bed, and there was nothing that he could get him to do to listen. So maybe scaring the shit out of him wasn't world's worst idea. So Gary sighed, drank his beer, and focused his attention on the brilliantly directed movie on TBS. That night, Gary ignored the fact that his 8-year-old had placed himself stealthily beside the sofa and stayed up for 2.5 hours past his bedtime watching the original version of Child's Play, complete with ad breaks for products like insurance and athlete's foot. He heard his son get up once and thought he might have heard something thrown into the trash. No matter, it was Gary time now, and nothing was going to interrupt his peace. Gary drank 2 beers, enjoyed the movie, and then used his achy body to carry a sleeping Joey back to a stuffy-infested bed. He moved a few toys off the floor to clear a path to the door, and without thinking anything of it, took Joey's My Buddy doll out of the wastepaper basket and placed it on the armchair next to Joey's bed. He made a mental note to tell Joey not to just throw toys away when he picked up his room. Kids these days. And then he went to sleep. The next morning, Sandra noticed things were a bit weird in the Fetterhorn house. First of all, there wasn't their youngest child sloppily mixing together 3 different kinds of breakfast cereal at the kitchen table. This was unusual. Second, there was 1 less toy in Joey's cluttered bedroom. Unsurprisingly, it was the red-headed doll. Gary had already been at work for 3 hours before a cell phone rang with an upset Sandra on one end and a screaming Joey in the background. "You let him watch Chuckie? He's burying the doll in the backyard as we speak. He said it jumped out of the trash." Gary hung up, shook his head, and turned his baler back through the endless field. There was a lot of hay to bale. It wasn't the most brain-consuming process, however, and he let his mind wander back to the movie. Maybe, just maybe, Joey had learned his lesson. Well, he had not. That night, after putting his youngest to bed 6 times total, Gary stroked his beard and entertained a slightly unhinged thought. He'd done a lot of strange things as a lifelong farmer and father of 4, but he'd never dug up a grave before. Funnily enough, that's what he found himself doing at 9 p.m. on a Thursday in his backyard in Benton, Iowa. It didn't take much. Joey wasn't the most thorough of children. The grave was about 4.5 inches deep and poorly covered. That's how Joey's My Buddy doll got from the backyard dirt nap to being placed back in the armchair next to his bed. It's alive! Again, the following morning, Gary's cell phone rang. Sandra was hooting and hollering while Joey wailed in the background. Gary shook his head, hung up the phone, and went back to flipping veils. That night, after 9 attempts to get Joey to sleep, Gary stroked his beard and went out to the yard. As he'd heard from his older children, there was indeed a burn pile in the big pit the family used for bonfires. And in that pit, admittedly disfigured but not utterly incinerated, was My Buddy. Gary could not help but chuckle out loud. Poor Joey had tried to light the damn doll on fire. But it didn't matter. He still hadn't learned his lesson. He was not going to sleep. This time, he decided to place the burnt remains of the doll back in the armchair. And the next morning, the bone-chilling wail that erupted from Joey's room was no surprise to anyone. It won't die! Let me speak to him, drawled Gary when the expected phone call came from Sandra. He was driving his tractor, listening to the new Kenny Chesney album, and was finding life to be quite peaceful at the moment. He thought he could talk some sense into his son. Joey, buddy, maybe this thing will stop haunting you if you just go to sleep when we tell you to. This suggestion did not go over well, and it didn't work. It took 2 hours to get Joey to sleep that night, and another 30 for Gary to find the kitchen shears missing and the doll cut up into 6 pieces shoved between the fridge and the garbage can. With the last ounce of his mental energy, Gary had the idea to pull out the duct tape and perform a little reconstructive surgery. My Buddy found his way back into the armchair again. Now, you might thinking that the usual ending to an anxiety addict story would be Joey learning his lesson and being afraid of dolls for the rest of his life, but now going to bed when his parents told him to. No, that's not what happened. Because Joey told this story on TikTok while Gary, obviously dressed to the cowboy nines, was sitting in the kitchen behind him. And Dad, tell them who really got the shit end of the stick. Gary looks up from peeling his pistachios and looks at the camera. Well, I reckon it was me. And why is that? Prompts the now 20-something-year-old Joey, who looks way too normal for a guy who had every reason to believe that he grew up living with a demonic doll. 'Cause you started sleeping in bed with me every dang night. And for how long did that last? Pushes Joey, channeling his full Ryan Seacrest. 5 years, maybe longer, every damn night. Then Joey points to the camera to a 40-something-year-old blonde woman also sitting at the kitchen table. Her blue eyes are the size of Chuckie's. Her mouth is agape, her tan face aghast, and she's staring in utter disbelief at Gary. Joey can't control his laughter. And how do you feel about that, younger stepmother? That's the guy you married. And the video cuts out with another yell. Younger stepmother does not like the story, but Gary just chuckles. Well, you sleep now, don't you? And Joey just shakes his head, making eye contact with the camera. Barely. Child's Play, the 90s gift that keeps on giving. Technically 88, but it's all the same idea. You guys, if you like this story, there are so many more wherever you get your podcast. Please like, subscribe, rate, and if you want to spend 2 seconds and give us a review, we would love that. And from us to you, like always, sweet dreams.
Thanks for listening to Anxiety Addicts Bedtime Stories. We're here to help you take your mind off whatever is making you spiral by listening to a story about someone else's hilarious or mortifying experience. And we know you have your own. Please DM or email your stories of bad decisions, miscommunications, and Murphy's Law. Your support helps us keep doing what we love. And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. And as always, sweet dreams. This episode was written and recorded by Joe Newman, with editing and sound design by Morgan Walsh.